First off, I'm going to give a few shout-outs. When I find channels I really enjoy, I like to give them shout-outs, even if they don't really know my channel, but some of them do. I always give Canadian Prepper a shout-out because I think he's the best prepping channel, analytical prepping channel out there. He's very, very, like he says, you know, he doesn't agree with everything I say. I don't agree with everything he says. But I think we're so like-minded on so many things. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with the guy. You know, check out his channel. His channel is awesome. Another channel that I've recently discovered within the last past year, man, it's freaking cold in here. I gotta go light my fire. Sorry, I always got to multitask while I'm doing stuff. Is Reality Calls. If you haven't caught her channel, it's a pretty good channel. She's over there in Britain. You know, she's got a little British accent and all that. She's what you. She doesn't refer to herself as an alt-writer, but she does very, you know, researched. Oriented. Blonde in the Belly of the Beast is another one that's like that too. But she did a video about musicians being left-wing. And I think everybody's kind of noticed that. Sorry, I'm just going to have to prop up my camera. Everybody's kind of noticed that it's almost a given. If it comes out of Hollywood, it's going to be left-wing propaganda. Musician or not. They're always on the left. And again, I'm not going to really go too far in on the science about it because, like she said, she didn't really find any studies done on it or anything like that. But there's some things that, the little bit of studies that have been done on it do show. Like, typically, musicians and creative people tend to use that part of the brain where they tend to use a lot of creativity, which also tends to be the same part of the brain where people tend to be leftist. That type of thing. Now, for those of you who follow my channel, you said, Reg, aren't you like some sort of metalhead rocker? And you would be correct on that. Rock and roll day to you. But I'm not a leftist. Now, incidentally, I used to refer to myself as a liberal years ago in a neoclassical sense of liberal. But a liberal, what it was when I was 20, is not like a liberal today. A liberal today, because everything has shifted over. So we have to understand this, that if we look at the left-right paradigm, for some people who don't understand the left-right paradigm, if you're in the center, leaning a little bit to the left, you're a liberal. If you're going a little bit more to the left, you're then a socialist. And if you're going a little more to that, you're then a communist. And if you're more than that, you're a Marxist. And after a Marxist, people are just dead in a ditch somewhere. And there's also the up and down aspects to that as well. If we go back to the center again, and leaning a little bit to the right, you'll be a conservative. And then from a conservative, you'll go to a libertarian. And from a libertarian, you go to an anarchist. And then if you go past anarchist, you're probably going to be a Satanist. Now, I know a lot of people say, how the hell do you pull that one in there? I don't get that one. You're giving in to every primal whim. The core belief of it is like just a little bit beyond, you know, it's self-indulgence to the degree, without getting too far into it, but it actually makes sense when you understand it in its practice. Not that I'm a Satanist or anything like that, but you know, like I try to learn about everything as much as possible. So that's why I say it's there. It's that far right. It's like there's just no rules, no repercussions, no whatever. Indulge into your most primal whatever, which to me is anarchist. You know, okay, no rules, whatever. But there's slight more limitation than that. So I won't divert too far in there. So now we know where left and right is. Now everything has shifted over one to the left. So a conservative is really a liberal is really a socialist is really a progressive, and then a progressive, then they're a communist, and after a communist, they're Marxist. Everything I said, I forgot to mention progressive. And most liberals now will call themselves progressive. If you up here in Canada, every policy, our new progressive policy, that's all Trudeau talks about is progressive, progressive, progressive. Everything in Parliament. The Liberals are now this new progressive policy. Progressive is the new communist because it's shifted over. So when you're talking to a progressive, you're not talking to the dictionary version of a progressive in practice. And progressive is not really left or right. It's whatever benefits mankind the most is progressive. Nikola Tesla said something along the lines of, if progress doesn't, destroys your environment and doesn't help the populace, then it's not really good. Progress is not really always a benefit to mankind, and that's true. Where Tesla wanted to, basically free energy, and the 0 point energy and stuff like that that people are talking about now. He really wanted to do it to better mankind and give it to the world. Edison wanted to sell it to the world, that type of thing. But I don't want to divert too much. Both men were extremely creative. Whether you liked one or the other doesn't really matter. They had different methods. But you could say one was on one side of the scale, the other one was on the other side of the scale in terms of how they approached humanity and stuff like that. So with that said, getting back to the musicians, musicians do tend to be using that side of the brain that the liberals tend to use. So they tend to be in that, I love her little box thing that she does there with the breaking it down like that, because it's very analytical that way. So if you're in this group, you're more likely to be, more respectful, more, like day to day to be the same one day after the other, more predictable, more, thinking of the future, that type of thing. Where you're on the other side, you're more like, change is good, change is always good, more individualistic, more agreeable, more, you're less to be less hard stand. Go watch her video on it, it'll explain itself much better. But the thing is you also have to factor in that there's a lot of musicians that can't come out into the open as right wing. And that type of thing, or whatever. There are few actors out there that can really get away with it. If I wanted to use a case in point, I would use Clint Eastwood. I think between John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, they leapfrog each other over who is really more hardcore right wing. One guy can't blink because his face is so freaking chiseled. The other guy shits nails. Both are men, right? But both, both have this very conservative, logical approach to things, orderly structure. They believe that you earn your own keep. Don't wallow and cry about what things like that. So yeah, these are actors that are definitely right wing. And musicians, well, me being a musician, you would definitely not call me a hardcore lefty. Although on some policies, you might think I'm a socialist on. I do believe in a two-tier medical system. I think that's probably the best way to go. I don't think people should be rejected medical care based on their conditions, but I do think there should be conditions based on, if you're obese, okay, well, we're not going to refuse you care, but if you want this care, you're going to have to do something about your living, your daily life. You're going to have to, help better yourself. I think there should be consequences to actions, which most conservatives believe that. Actions have consequences, so therefore you reap what you sow, you make your bed, you lie in it, all those cliches come out, and stuff like that. Now, that said, when you get a leftist organization, which we know Hollywood is all Jewish, the music industry, same thing, it's controlled by the same people, what you tend to get is that in order to get into those positions, for example, and you see this with star after star after star, where people just say, oh, these are just, batshit crazy liberals, degenerate liberals, but it's not that simple. I think is the personalities, you have alter ego. For example, we'll use, Justin Bieber. I don't listen to Justin Bieber. Please do not judge Canada for Justin Bieber. Okay, but look at all the trouble this kid gets into. Well, he's not a kid anymore, he's a young man. Okay, you've seen it with Molly Cyrus and stuff like that. They come out as these perfect children, into the business. Their image is artificial and is built in. And because they live in such an artificial world, I think they just go batshit crazy. And then you got Molly Cyrus trying to be, she's got dildos, she's got her tits hanging out and dildos hanging off her during her concerts. All this degeneracy, humping giant dildos and stuff like that. And then they promote that as safe, healthy, normal femininity. Meanwhile, you got the girl from Big Bang Theory says how she really loves the fact that the nuclear family, that type of thing, and how she believes in the sanctity of marriage. Oh my God, how can she say something so horrible? Outrage, liberal outrage. Liberal outrage to me is just comedy and tragedy just meeting. So never be put off by it. Just factor it up to an amusing thing and whatever. And that's the problem that the liberals have now, is that they can't deal with people with dissenting voices that actually question That why do you think you're, and it's simple. Why do you think you're the keepers of morality? And this is coming out into to these, like Beyonce with her, Black Lives Matter stuff like that. At the with the militant, all that stuff. And it's like, okay, well, actions have consequences. So these leftists that are really out there, what they're finding that they have to learn moderation, some of them. It backfires on them when they go too crazy one way. So then you get, okay, a hardened stance. So it's either they double down on their craziness, and I mean, like, for example, Madonna out there saying, I'll give you a blowjob if you vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't know, you can't even make this stuff up. Does that really help her image? You know what I mean? Like, again, people are going to say, whoa, and I know there's a lot of girls my age, or well, I guess they're women, in their 40s, stuff like that, and they grew up with Madonna. Madonna, like, like a virgin there, that video and stuff like that. And, I have nothing against Madonna. I don't know her or whatever. So that, but, she was multicultural, leftist, whatever. So, yeah, she got the pass. But now, when it's come full circle, when you're saying you're going to give blowjobs to people who vote for Hillary Clinton, people are going to start saying, well, that's, like the saying goes, you never want to meet your childhood hero. And for somebody that would have been her childhood hero, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you can't follow that anymore. So once you start seeing these leftist musicians and stuff like that, we recently seen, Robert De Niro go off on the CBC here in Canada about Donald Trump. Okay, fine. But he came off as a ranting lunatic on that. And think about Robert De Niro. I mean, Taxi Cab, You talking to me? You talking to me? You must be talking to me because there ain't nobody else here. Excellent movie, you know what I mean? Robert De Niro, excellent actor. I like Robert De Niro. But now, his actions are going to have consequences. How much blowback did he get from that? I'm sure he's going to get his usual liberal supporters, but now he's going to be isolated to that group. So, yeah, you see it there. So these actions are going to have consequences. Now, I'm going to bring in Susan Sarandon. Now, Susan Sarandon, a very leftist feminist. I've heard some of her stuff in the past, and I'm like, she's an intelligent lady. She seems like a very nice lady. I have nothing against her. Again, never met her. Good actress, that type of thing. Very leftist. And you expect that. But recently, when asked about her support of Hillary Clinton, she was like, huge supporter of Hillary Clinton. Why? Because she's a woman, and it's about time a woman is in the White House and all that. Boom, 360 or 180. And you could clearly see how they were trying to bait her into saying, no, you have to say Trump is bad. Trump is bad. She's like, yeah, but Hillary Clinton, she takes her marching orders from Henry Kissinger. I could kiss the woman for that. Like, I'm just like, thank you for saying that, using a platform that reaches tens of thousands and millions of people. Mainstream media. I mean, just to give you an idea, when I was demonized in the Finding the Free Man episode that they had on the CBC, I'm the guy on the bucket shooting with the rifle. It's right-wingers are dangerous. Again, I had no problem with that, and I called the CBC and I told them, I said, well, why don't you interview me on it, on the issue? And it was about basically free man on the land stuff. Now, I never claimed to be a free man. I was just talking about the thing. But they pulled one of my, finally how there was no copyright infringement on that, but they used one of my YouTube videos, and they did that little segment. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a soundbite. Why not, send the conversation my way? Let's debate it. Never happened, right? Why? Because they don't want that. But anybody that would have found that video and looked into it, that video gets a little bit of, the conversation is open. And whether you're on it, that side or that side, but it doesn't matter. But the thing is when people see that, okay, that reached 12 million people worldwide, and including in Canada, in one night. So it's very hard to get ahead of that propaganda. However, once you get ahead of that propaganda once, you make people unsubvertible. And that's where these musicians and stuff like that fall short, and actors and stuff like that. So Susan Sarandon out there showing logic and reason, saying, you know what, my conscience just doesn't let me vote for Hillary Clinton. I know I was in her camp before, but she's going to have us at war. She takes her marching orders from Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, if you don't know who he is, George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Greater Israel Project, Rothschilds, Rockefellers. You start there. I've just given you enough to start there. You understand what those people are. You understand what Hillary Clinton is. And Bush's, Blair's, Obama's, Clinton's, Harper's, Trudeau's, they're all the same people. You're dealing with the same person, or the same agenda, that type of thing. And she sees this. So she's a lefty. She's an actress, but she's using logic. So, or at least on that issue. Well, that's going to catch on after a while. And when a musician has a hardened stance against, we used to have this Canadian musician here in Ottawa, Bruce Colburn, did Lovers in a Dangerous Time and If I Had a Rocket Launcher. Very political in his songs and stuff like that in the 1980s, I think late 1970s, early 1980s. I think he even went into the 1990s. Buffy St. Clair, another Canadian artist here, very leftist, native lady. So, you know, she's against she's against the man, you know what I mean? The establishment and whatever. But you could kind of respect those people, even though you would call them leftist musicians and whatever, because they're consistent in their belief system. Like Buffy St. Clair is native, so she sings for natives' rights. Even if you don't agree with all of that, that's fine. Yes, you know, she's part of the Idle No More, which is a George Soros thing. Disagree with that strongly. That type of thing. So in that sense, okay, you can look at it and say, okay, well, she came out that way into the music industry as that activist. Neil Young, okay, again, good activist. You know, he's always been a hippie. He'll always be a hippie. I don't agree with him on, you know, the tar sands, which I call it, if you're anti-tar sands or anti-Canadian oil, you call it the tar sands. If you're pro-Canadian oil, you call it the oil sands, whichever. I look at it and said, okay, there's things he's being disingenuous about, for example. And I would love to sit down with Neil Young, jam with him first, and then, you know, have a political discussion. There are points he makes about, yeah, we do want a cleaner environment. But what they never point out is that, yes, where they had oil sands or tar sands 30 years ago, there are now 50-foot trees and boreal forests there. You cannot, you know, you can't, that's a clean environment again, you know. So, yes, I agree. Stricter regulations so everybody's safe, clean drinking water. There are issues in the water from the oil sands. So, yeah, I'm for cleaning that stuff up, make it better. But I'm not anti or whatever. But the case in point is, stay consistent for what you're doing. So Buffy St. Clair, consistent in what she's doing. So the people that like Buffy St. Clair are always going to like Buffy St. Clair. She hasn't waved in her thing. Neil Young, same thing. He doesn't really wave. He doesn't go far off the reserve. He was always a hippie. He'll always be a hippie. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, same thing. His stance on gun owners, I thought was a bit of a jackass. I still like Pearl Jam. I still listen to Pearl Jam. Heck, I still play some of their songs. But his stance on the gun owners and stuff like that, I thought was a complete asshole thing to do. But Eddie Vedder, he is a political guy. It doesn't come out in all of his songs, in the Pearl Jam songs, but he's political, and I think he's pretty consistent. You can forgive an actor or an actress saying something stupid once in a while, but when it gets to the point of ridiculousness, then you know they have to understand actions have consequences, and people vote with their dollars. So, for example, we use Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, Jerry Seinfeld, I would say he's a leftist, that type of thing. But he's still kind of reasonable, you know, that type of thing. But he's to the point where it's affecting his livelihood because he can't go and do a stand-up comedy in a college somewhere. He can't do it because the college campuses are so multicultural, politically charged. Cultural Marxism, all that stuff is there. So he just can't go out and do that anymore. And he's even said it himself. And he's like, you know, that's not reasonability. It's basically, okay, yes, people can be this way or be that way. But when it's to the point where you just can't say anything, it's complete censorship. So he's learning that, okay, yeah, you can be a leftist, but when it gets to the point that, okay, you have to agree with us or else we shut you up, then he's not for that. So that makes sense. You got to agree with the guy on that. List goes on and on and on. Now, another guy, okay, and again, you have to understand, because the system is a leftist system, I mean, and I say, when you hear the world, one world, new world order, one world government, whatever, you have to put it into context so that most people really get that whatever you look at, it's one system. The banking system is the education system. The education system is the military system. The military system is the media. The media is the political system, etc., etc. And it's all controlled by the same people that are Rothschild, Rockefeller, Soros, Brzezinski, Kissinger, Clintons, Obamas, Blairs, Bushes, that type of thing. Camerons, Harpers, the list goes on. House of Windsor, you get the idea. It all plays back to the same thing. These people set it all up. You know, the media system was set up by the same people that work with the banking system. So it's all in that direction, and it's a leftist, utopianistic direction, and one world government, globalization, etc., etc. And that is one of the things. So if you are a right-wing musician, and they're out there, trust me, they're out there. You'd be surprised how many guys I know like myself that are hunt, fish, trap, play guitar. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of right-wingers that are musicians. They just don't get the break. That's the thing. Most right-wing musicians will probably create their own record labels. They'll probably do that type of thing. They won't go to Hollywood. They won't go to they'll never make it on the top 40 system because they're not allowed into that system. So that's why I think you see that trend. Now, if I could use somebody that is extremely noticeable as a right-wing musician, everybody's going to, whether you agree with them, love them, hate them, whatever, very consistent, never wavers, Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent is about the anthem for right-winger musician rock right there. This guy, I think he's a good musician. He's excellent live. I've seen him with Damn Yankees. That was a good show. And he's consistent. He's consistent on his political views. He's extremely outspoken for a right-winger. He is extremely outspoken for a right-winger. Probably the most outspoken right-wing musician because he doesn't fear the other side. He views it as weak. And I think that's what a lot of right-wingers are doing, is they view the left as not powerful, but they're weak. So why are we afraid of them? They've got hateful words, Ooh, they got shaming, It's like ooh, terrifying. And that's why, what happens is, heck, even Katy Perry said something. What did she say? It was a few years back, something along, and I don't follow that stuff at all, but it just crosses your path. You can't avoid it. You hear about it. And she said something that came off a little bit right-wing or something like that. What's the other guy? White hair now. What's his name? James. Anyway, he came out and he tweeted, kind of like in favor of Trump and stuff like that, or how Hillary needs to go to jail. And this guy, you would consider him a leftist. John Cusack. This guy, if you look in the dictionary under left, he'll be on the left side of it. This guy's as leftist as you can, and even he came out anti-Obama. And you got it. And he was distraught about that. He had so much hope for him. He says at first, he says the first couple of years, he said, well, he inherited so much bad stuff from George Bush that cut him some slack. But then it's to the point where he's had time to reverse some of that stuff, and he's doubled down on it. I can't support him anymore. So I might sit down there with John Cusack and say, I disagree with you on this, I disagree on that, but it's a person you can have a conversation with. And that shows reasonability. Another guy, that's actually Matthew McConaughey. This guy hunts. Oh, yeah. Can you imagine somebody in Hollywood hunting? This is what got Ted Nugent to the, with the Spirit of the Wild and Fred Bear stuff, And yeah, I remember in the 90s, the MTV demonizing Ted Nugent for hunting. You had PETA and Pamela Anderson, with the PETA and stuff like that out there. And I laugh and I cry at the same time. But, again, let's wreck everybody's heritage because a handful of MTV people, and look at how batshit crazy they are now. I can imagine, yes, some brainwashed lefties will watch it, but I can't imagine it has to be propped up because this stuff is starting to fail. People don't want it anymore. They're rejecting because they see how phony it is. It's, follow our way or we're going to, demonize you beyond belief and ruin your career. Another, again, Matthew McConaughey. This guy, he's, I wouldn't call him a hardcore right-winger, but he hunts. He tends to be a bit of a, like a survivalist type of guy. You see him in these car commercials. So, he's an actor. He's still working. But he doesn't get what he used to get. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't get those roles he used to get. There's another one, John... anyway, he's in a movie, a patriotic movie. He's an older guy, John... You know him if you've seen him. But anyway, talking about, police state type stuff. He's on Alex Jones almost all the time. Mila Jovovich. I still think she's a great-looking girl. Huge fan of Alex Jones. So is she right-winger or is she left-winger? You know what I mean? That type of thing. So they are there, but can they be open about it? No. So I think that's why we get the illusion that all musicians and stuff like that tend to be left-wing. Because they get the platform. They don't really get the populace. They get the platform. Now, that said, if we want to go YouTube people, do it with Dan. If you ever watch, this guy's a bike guy. He's a gun. He's more of a gun guy than he lets on. But you could tell he's a gun guy. And even he said he got called out by another channel to say how that all the prominent YouTubers should be out there and saying that they're going to support Hillary so Trump doesn't win, yada yada yada. And a lot of people they get suckered into that bulliness. But I think closet Trump voters, okay, if the statistic or the data is right on the analysis of which way people are going to vote. Right now, it looks like Trump should win 25-1, which he's not going to win because the system. It's not who votes; it's who counts the votes. That's what you have to figure out. I mean, that's how Hillary Clinton is going to win. But it doesn't matter because at that point the emperor has no clothes. But how many people are anti-Trump in public and are going to vote or Trump in private? Like Madonna's probably saying, I'll give blowjobs to Hillary Clinton supporters. And then she goes to the booth, fuck Trump, man. Hey, we can vote 10 times. Yeah, that's right. Trump. You never know. It could backfire like that. And you see it. It's not prominent, but you see it. But anyway, let's do it. What Dan guy said, he goes, I wish they'd never done that. That was a real douchebag thing to do. I forget the other YouTuber he was talking about. But anyway, not somebody I follow. One of the trendy YouTubers or whatever. Not the ones you would expect to be that political or whatever. But anyway, trying to influence people to vote, whatever. Do it with Dan does it a better way. He goes with, you know what? Vote whoever you think represents you. I think that is a great, even if you don't feel like you're represented by anybody, I get that. Vote the way you think. Vote the way you think. And he goes, I'll tell you who I'm not voting for. He says, I'm not voting for Trump or Clinton. So he's voting for somebody else. Somebody says, oh, well, you're throwing away your vote. Yeah, but he goes, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of evil. I'm going to vote for who I believe in. Now, a lot of libertarians have been saying that too. Don't vote for the lesser of evil. Vote. And I get that it is going to get to the point where people are going to have to do that. Where they're going to go vote. Well, right now you can't vote for Clinton because you're going to get into a thermonuclear war if you do. Trump, the thing about Trump is, a lot of people, I don't like a lot of things he stands for. But on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff he's offering that I really like. I do like his economic stance. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, me being a Canadian, I don't get a say in this vote. But a Trump win is going to be hard on Canada, but a Hillary Clinton is going to be worse on Canada. Trump win will be hard on Canada in forms of trade deals. But however, it might slap us enough to realize that we need to go nationalistic, get out of NAFTA, the IMF, United Nations, NATO. Yes, we can support NORAD because that makes sense. But what we save from NATO, we could beef up our own military, protect our borders, become non-interventionist. Again, I'm a nationalist. I'm a bit of a contradiction. I'm nationalist on many things, socialist, libertarian on most things. Just shrink government down to essential stuff and that's it. Get rid of all this big bureaucracy stuff. Just get rid of it all. And more important, when it comes back to the musician stuff like that, get it so that you can compete with Hollywood. Remember when Toronto started and Montreal started doing the film stuff back in the 90s? There was a huge bash from Hollywood to stop. Don't it's anti-American if you go and use the film industries in Toronto. They didn't like the competition. That's fine. But now it's like, okay, well, everybody's benefited from that. Canada's benefited. Many American companies have benefited from using our services, that type of thing. So those type of people, again, they control. But I think Hollywood is diving. Birth of a Nation, I don't know if you've seen that propaganda that just came out. Again, anti-white, stoke the racism a bit more, that type of thing. And they call it Birth of a Nation. That's the thing. And it was based upon, I think, our 1920s or 1930s film that was... It was a rehatch of it, but with a leftist spin to it. And again, anti-white all the way. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't turmoil back then and there wasn't slavery and stuff like that. But, I mean, the actors never bring things into perspective. Leonardo DiCaprio right now when I was doing, and good actor, no doubt about that. But again, this leftist stuff that he does, Wolf of Wall Street does that, complains about the establishment, and then how many power boats that he has, 50-foot, 100-foot power boats does he have? These big, diesel burning at 25 gallons an hour, you know what I mean, or more. That's on idle, and then out there talking about global warming. Experiences a Chinook in Alberta calls it global warming. Again, these people, but the thing is yes, their influence can, they're in a position of influence. So, mind you, I bet you if we were to look at DiCaprio, he's probably invested heavily into this global warming carbon credit thing like Al Gore and all that. You never know. These people could be milking it, right? Maybe he truly believes in the global warming thing. Yes, since the Ice Age we have been warming. There's no doubt about that. But, for example, what they don't tell you is the warming is like not even a degree yet. And it's not everywhere. And the Arctic ices, both North Pole and South Pole, are larger than they've ever been since 2007. Sometimes larger than they've been in decades. They don't talk about how the CO2 is not the main contributor to the global warming. It seems to have more to do with the sun. The CO2 is not built up in the atmosphere where they said. Their models, their hockey stick climate change model isn't working. Al Gore lied. He made a lot of money off of it. Dupe me once, Now they want to have a global carbon tax. How does a carbon tax fight global warming? It doesn't. It just makes a lot of common people poor, and yet they promote this stuff with using the utopianism and the emotional response of, go with this or else whatever, rather than bringing it out as a rational debate. So those type of people, in the long run, they're going to get alienated because when people see who stays consistent, who doesn't stay consistent, then you realize who you can live with and who you can't. And I think that's how a lot of actors and stuff like that go away the dodo. Another one, what do you call him, Matt Damon, leftist, very, 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 very leftist. However, his speech, his utopianistic speeches, they're love him, hate him. They're really love him, hate him. There is a lot of valid points he makes about the wars and stuff. I'm not against him on that. His little over the top leftism, yeah, it's annoying. But he's at least consistent on his speech about the world elites. However, his solutions I disagree with. You can't have complete, free stuff for everybody. It just doesn't work that way. You can't have a global Elysium. They're trying it already with the European migrant crisis. You just can't have everybody flooding into everybody. It doesn't work. He doesn't understand that. But maybe you can sit down and debate him on it. I think he's a bit of an asshole. But if you debated this guy like an asshole, he'd probably have some respect in the sense, okay, well, we're making a point here. You're making your point, I'm making your point. Matt Damon is a bit of an asshole. His attitude is a bit of an asshole. He just comes off that way. It's the way he talks. He talks down to people. He thinks he's better, that type of thing. He makes good points where he's right. He's right where he's wrong. I think he's completely wrong. But I think you could sit there and actually debate him. I think it would be an interesting conversation. That said, he's consistent. So, is he on the left? Yes, he's consistent. Now, are more musicians on the left or right? I don't know. I would say it depends on the musical instrument as well and the genre, because let's look at classic players, people who play violin. People who could play violin better than me. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It was following my channel. Like, hey, somebody could actually play the violin better than you. Whew. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, please keep your comments to a minimum on that one. You guys, you torture me, but I try, right? But that said, you take these people that are extremely disciplined, extreme Japanese violinists. Vanessa Mae, I think, is one of them. I don't know if she's leftist or right winger or whatever, but the discipline, probably came from a very conservative household if you're playing that kind of an instrument. Why? Because a violin is the most difficult instrument you could ever possibly play. It is most unforgiving. You will get it over time, but it takes a lot of determination. Not typically the traits of somebody, gratification, leftist, give me everything right now. You have to work for it. You have to strive for it. You have to earn it. You have to be, and you're proud of yourself when you do. So I'm not saying that they're all going to be right wing or left wing, but I think people that pick up like cellos and violins and stuff like that probably tend to be more going to be maybe socially liberal but fiscally conservative and more orderly in that because of the discipline it takes. Just saying. People who play hillbilly, backwater country music and stuff like that. CMT, the Country Music Network. I can guarantee you, those people, if they're leftist light. If they're driving pickup trucks, playing banjos, Duck Dynasty types, trust me, again, they're not left-wing. They're probably socially liberal, but probably very conservative when it comes to fiscal policy and stuff like that. Why? I live in the countryside. Everybody I know that listens to country music works hard. They're not lefties. They might be a little bit left-leaning on some issues, that type of thing. But for the more, they're probably more centrist than anything. So I would say, I mean, how many country musicians are you going to hear say something about God and country and family? You know what I mean? That you don't hear that in pop culture. Pip whore culture. You don't get that, and that's what like Miley Cyrus is anti-family, anti-responsibility, anti-this, anti-that. That type of thing. So they are there. I don't think. I think there's a lot more right wingers but they can't just come out and say it because the political climate doesn't allow for it. But I think after the election, I think all bets are off and game on, and people are just going to draw their lines. And I think that maybe more musicians might tend to be a little bit more leftist. Sure. But this batshit crazy utopian leftist, I think, is just a few that are promoted to the top there to create that. Lady Gaga, let's look at her, for example. I don't really know where she stands on a lot of issues because I don't follow people like that. But you can see her dialing down her image, trying to do things more. And that dialing down of image does say a lot. It's getting away from the Hollywood faction of that leftism. I mean, it might be trying to redeem herself. Like somebody like Miley Cyrus, I mean, she's had her tits hanging out and a dildo strapped to her on stage. And all the degeneracy, like she has to double down on it. Shock jock value kind of thing. Like you at that point, you can't redeem yourself on that stuff. You just can't do it. Pamela Anderson, Daryl Hannah, again, crazy leftist. But Daryl Hannah, a very consistent leftist. She's always been leftist, that type of thing. She's utopianistic leftist. Okay, she doesn't deal with the real world. Too bad. Not a bad actress, fine. But, yeah, you could see that. Michael Mancini, I think the guy's probably right-wing. Very kind of a straight shooter kind of seems like. I never heard his political views, but you can kind of, some of the actors you can kind of sense that they're a little bit more right-wing, Gerard Butler. I don't know if he's right-wing or not. This guy loves guns. Loves guns. From Scotland, he loves guns. Hardcore gun guy. Pierce Brosnan, a James Bond guy. Anti-gun. How? How can you drive an Aston Martin with your Walter 9mm and Daniel Craig? I think he might be a right-winger. I don't know. The guy in the Avengers there with the archery with the hot, always with the hot chick there. Anyway, yeah. Did the Sandy Hook thing. He apologized for insulting gun owners after. He said, I didn't realize it would come off that way. So probably a closet conservative or whatever. And what makes a conservative? I don't know. I think there's a bit of a gray area, but because some conservatives are very socially liberal. I would kind of, do you. If you want to marry a fence post, marry a fence post. However, don't be using LGBTQ and Common Core and whatever we call it up here in Canada on the kids. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Keep that to yourself. You're a minority group, fine. We won't harm you. We don't want you harmed. Do your thing. But we don't want to be dictated to by the minority. And that's what really leftism is. It's the minority trying to rule the majority through shaming and stuff like that. But it doesn't work after a while. It doesn't work at all. What other actors can I think of that might be right wing? But Kurt Russell. Oh, hey, he's a right winger. He was releasing his inner Ted Nugent. I like that. I like Snake. Snake Riskin. I think Escape from L.A. Yeah, I think so. Sylvester Stallone, anti-gun, but I can't see him being a left winger. I think he's probably moderate at best because, think of the hardships that man went through to get to where he was. Schwarzenegger, he's a strange one, but Schwarzenegger, I think he's more leftist, but in public, but I think he is a Republican, but he's not. You know what I mean? Like he's a strange one. He's really, because his policies are kind of, he talks, he speaks in riddles and tongues, kind of, because his policies are, right wing, but he tends to pander to the left. So I don't know. He's weird. Chuck Norris, well, who do you think created right wing? Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris, very openly right-wing, no doubt about that. Patriotic, mother and country, God and country, family, very rejective of what he had to go through Hollywood, that type of thing. So these guys, again, they do, they're out of the limelight a bit. They've made their millions, so they're secure enough that they can go out there. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's a bit of a case study in himself, but he's on the right. I mean, this guy is religious as hell. The Passion of Christ. Apocalypto. If you didn't see Apocalypto, that is such an excellent, excellent, excellent movie. Mel Gibson was an okay actor, like the Lethal Weapon stuff. Who didn't like that stuff, right? Good actor. But yeah, he's definitely politically. I mean, he called out Jewish Hollywood to his own detriment. Is he a saint? No, he's a bit of a wild card. Yeah, he's got his problems, but I mean, they took him to the ringer. But you could see it just in his storylines. Like Braveheart. You know what I mean? I think that is his attitude. Mad Max. I think that is his attitude. What was the one where he gets his toes smashed? Where he's going after his $130,000. It's like excellent. He's like this hitman, but he only wanted to be paid $130,000. And they screwed him over, tried to kill him, and then he goes around killing everybody for his $130,000. And at the end, he goes, "Well, I'll give you $2 million." No, I only want my $130,000. It's the principle of it, right? So, like these kind of storylines, they don't write these movies. I get it, but I think that parts kind of there's some actors that their character I think comes out in their character, their real character comes out. There's some actors like that. So I don't think there's any shortage of right winger, musicians or whatever or actors out there. I think if you follow the people long enough, you kind of get an idea of who's what. Yngwie Malmsteen, with arpeggios from hell. Moved from Sweden. Why? Because I think he explained socialism best. He goes, my country is Sweden. He goes, the people here, he goes, they don't want you to have too much. He goes, you can't get very far in Sweden because, and I'm not dissing Sweden, but he left Sweden to go to America because it was land of opportunity. He goes, here in Sweden, he goes, if you have too much, he goes, these people here want you to give it to those people who don't have enough there. And then everybody's like kind of equally poor. Like, I think it just summed up, and again, this guy, he's the loud rock star. He's the, he's not perfect. He does stupid things, whatever. But, the attitude is there that these people want to move forward, but they do choose a path that, if it is conservative, they have to be reservist about it. They have to be concealing it. In Canada, to be right-wing on the TV is almost impossible. It really, look at Rebel Media, love them or hate them. I got a chance to run it. I'd love to actually interview Brian Lilly myself. And he even quoted me in one of his pro-gun videos on Rebel Media. And basically, I ran into him on the street like at 7:30 in the morning, and I don't know where he was going, but I look, Brian Lilly. I said, yeah. I said, hi, my name's Reg. I said, I watch you all the time. I said, and this is between Sun News and the Rebel Media. I said, what happened? I said, you guys were up and running last week, and now you're out. And he explained a bit what was going on with the licensing and stuff like that. So I talked to him for probably about 25 minutes. I hope I didn't hold him up too much. But then we got talking about guns, and I was telling him, guns. And I told him, I said, Brian, use this in one of your videos. And he did. And thank you, Brian, for doing this. And he goes, I said, when you're trying to convey especially because there's anti-gunners out there, and you can't get through to them. But the people that are, basically on the fence, whether they should be right wing on the issue or left wing on the issue, type of thing. And gun issues are not really left or right when you really understand them for what they are. They're pro-liberty, anti-liberty, pro-property, anti-property, pro-defense, anti-self-defense. It's really what it comes down to. But I said, impress on your people. I said, and this is probably, you cannot impress this enough. You can't legislate crazy, and criminal is an occupation. I said, use it often. When that seed sits in for people, they will get it. And he used it. And he even quoted my name. He said, this guy named Reg, and he's a gun owner, and he went on. And it was a good while back, last year or whatever. And he used it. I was like, excellent. He took a platform bigger than mine and pushed it forward. And that's how these little incremental things will move. Still got a fire here. Oh, Jesus, so going with that, there are, media guys out there that are doing that. Another one that I've, the Rebel Media, they got a lot of people that I really like on there. I don't agree with every single thing they say. I don't even agree with every single thing Brian Lilly says. But the case in point is that the amount of propaganda that it goes from the mainstream to take out that faction of the Sun News, and how much effort goes into protecting, say, like the CBC. Well, that kind of gives you a blueprint very clearly of how hard it would be for a musician or a musician or an actor to come out and say, yeah, I'm right wing. You know what I mean? Alice Cooper. I'll just maybe I'll end with Alice Cooper. I love Alice Cooper. I've seen Alice Cooper live. You would say he's degenerate, he's this, he's the Antichrist. This guy is such a hardcore Christian, it is not funny. Dave Mustaine, same thing, hardcore Christians. Dave Mustaine, very right-wing, metalhead extraordinaire, and consistent. Yeah, he's had his problems with alcohol and drugs and stuff like that, but Dave Mustaine, born-again Christian, whether you like that or not, is but the message is Lights of Polaris, Holy Wars, Peace Sells. I mean, you can't get any more consistent than that. Guy's had his problems, sure, but very consistent on his political views. That type of thing. Okay, Dave Mustaine and Ted Nugent, I don't think they would get along. Dave Mustaine wrote a Countdown to Extinction, basically in protest to Ted Nugent, on the hunting and stuff like that. Okay, so they don't see eye to eye on that, but God, guns, and apple pie, I think the rest are pretty in line with. But that's okay, because they can debate that out. That type of thing. Freedom and liberty. Dave Mustaine and Ted Nugent are going to agree on those issues. So I'd say probably 80% of stuff that those guys are going to agree on. And you can look at these guys, they don't get promoted like they used to. But one thing I will give Ted Nugent over Dave Mustaine is Ted Nugent's loudness is his promotion. The fact that he does do political commentary a little more. Dave Mustaine, I think, could take it to that level too if he was a little more in with getting interviews and stuff like that. He does quite a bit of interviews. He does talk a lot about politics, and I like Dave Mustaine. I like listening to him. He's been on Alex Jones a few times too, but I think he needs to get more mainstream, which is turning at some point. The alternative media is going to completely crush the mainstream media, which makes us the mainstream. When that happens, then the thing is, I don't think this leftism is ever going to go away. I think it's just something that's genetically in people that makes them want to become 1919 Trotskyists or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the that Trotsky revolution stuff. I think it was 1950s, right? So whatever. And, this leftism. It gets birthed out of that. It starts off as a communist, utopianistic world where everybody's equal. Everybody's equal as long as one group has more, that type of thing. Versus capitalism, where it's kind of like free for all, but monopolies can rule. So it's kind of, there's problems with both sides, and I think we're going to hit moderation after all the insanity. It's just, will it be this generation, the generation after, whatever? It depends how bad it goes here. But it's always darkest just before the light. So I'd rather our generation take the hit than the next generation. But I think one way that can be done is through people speaking out. Now, you have to understand, for some, I wonder how many newscasters, for example, are out there reporting anti-Trump when they're not. Like, use Megyn Kelly, for example. You could say she's a celebrity. Yeah, she's a newscaster. But, newscasters in the States are different from, like, up here in Canada. Up here, a newscaster, you won't know their names at all, even if they've been around for forever, unless you really follow the news. They're just people reporting the news. But in the States, they sensationalize it. It's news with, commentary by Hannity or Megyn Kelly. Look at Megyn Kelly. She's about to lose her own show. Her ratings have dropped so much. And who did it? Trump. Her leftist kind of attack, feminist, pro-feminist stuff attack, and the ridiculous stuff, at the Republican debate. Okay, God just told you to do something. What do you do? Like how fucking ridiculous is that? Like that, it just totally they delegitimize themselves. So actions have consequences. This is what some actors are going to learn. Bono from U2. Okay. I wouldn't say he's at all a right-winger, but he is definitely a venture capitalist. This guy breaks and busts like everywhere. Like if you've been following what this guy, I don't follow him that, I don't follow these people, it's just you hear about it. And the celebrities like that is like, okay, this guy, okay, now he's invested in what? It's like, but that like you can't get any more capitalist than that. So maybe, because I think there's so much gray area with some people, that because they're in a system that is definitely geared to the left, that they have to be left, but they do some things that are kind of right wing, win, lose or draw. And then other ones, well, they can't say anything because they're in the early stages of their career, so they can't do that. And then other ones, they're at the end of their career, they've made their millions, they can just let it fly. Okay, you know what? I don't care if I never get an acting job again because, because, you know, I've made my millions. So I really don't know, because again, the right side of the musician, actor thing doesn't really get a platform directly. It's all covert and it's all subliminal. So somebody might be, if you follow an actor or an actress for a long enough time, whatever genre it might be, you will probably figure out their personality is left-wing or right-wing at some point. So I don't know if the studies are accurate on that. Like Reality Call says, again, she has a great channel, go check it out. But I think that it's one of those things, because me being a musician as well, I mean, I'm right-winger in a lot of, and I'm upper nationalistic left when it comes to protecting the borders and stuff like that, and a lot of economic stuff. But you know, I just want to put my country first, you know, so, you know, that's pretty patriotic, and not only that, but in my household, or whatever, I always believe in the idea of fiscal responsibility. Actions have consequences. If you do stupid things, you're going to have to atone for that. Is anybody perfect? No, everybody's done something stupid in their life. But on the other hand, these actresses and actors that do have these platforms to be loud, stuff like Pamela Anderson, I'll use for example. Sure, she could be ridiculous with PETA, but now who follows Pamela Anderson? Nobody. You know what I mean? Actions have consequences. And that's the type of thing. But they're given this illusion that they don't have consequence, so they think they can push it that much further, not realizing that at some point it backfires on them. So I think that's just something we're going to see anyway, and we're already seeing it. It's just the platform for the alt-right, or whatever you want to call it, or people-centered, or whatever, is not there anymore. It's all this crazy, batshit crazy leftist Hollywood stuff, which Hollywood, again, you can see all their propaganda, the anti-white propaganda, the divide and conquer, all that stuff is all failing. It's backfiring. People don't want it anymore. They want sanity. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody else. Next up, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself. Be true to others. Always the right thing. And have yourselves a great day. Hey, hi, and welcome. All right. First off, I'm going to give a few shout-outs. When I find channels I really enjoy, I like to give them shout-outs, even if they don't really know my channel, but some of them do. I always give Canadian Prepper a shout-out, because I think he's the best prepping channel, analytical prepping channel out there. He's very, very, like he says, you know, he doesn't agree with everything I say. I don't agree with everything he says. But I think we're so like-minded on so many things. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with the guy. You know, check out his channel. His channel's awesome. Another channel that I've recently discovered within the last past year, man, it's freaking cold in here. I gotta go light my fire. Sorry, I always got to multitask while I'm doing stuff. Is Reality Calls. If you haven't caught her channel, it's a pretty good channel. She's over there in Britain. You know, she's got a little British accent and all that. She doesn't refer to herself as an alt-writer, but she does very, you know, researched. Oriented. Blonde in the Belly of the Beast is another one that's like that too. But she did a video about musicians being left-wing. And I think everybody's kind of noticed that. Sorry, I'm just going to have to prop up my camera. Everybody's kind of noticed that it's almost a given. If it comes out of Hollywood, it's going to be left-wing propaganda. Musician or not. They're always on the left. And again, I'm not going to really go too far in on the science about it, because, like she said, she didn't really find any studies done on it or anything like that. But there's some things that, the little bit of studies that have been done on it do show, like typically musicians and creative people tend to use that part of the brain where they tend to use a lot of creativity, which also tends to be the same part of the brain where people tend to be leftist, that type of thing. Now, for those of you who follow my channel, you said, Reg, aren't you like some sort of metalhead rocker? And you would be correct on that. Rock and roll day to you. But I'm not a leftist. Now, incidentally, I used to refer to myself as a liberal years ago, in a neoclassical sense of liberal. But a liberal, what it was when I was 20, is not like a liberal today. A liberal today, because everything has shifted over. So we have to understand this, that if we look at the left-right paradigm, for some people who don't understand the left-right paradigm, if you're in the center, leaning a little bit to the left, you're a liberal. If you're going a little bit more to the left, you're then a socialist. And if you're going a little more to that, you're then a communist. And if you're more than that, you're a Marxist. And after a Marxist, people are just dead in a ditch somewhere. And there's also the up and down aspects to that as well. If we go back to the center again, and leaning a little bit to the right, you'll be a conservative. And then from a conservative, you'll go to a libertarian. And from a libertarian, you go to an anarchist. And then if you go past anarchist, you're probably going to be a Satanist. Now, I know a lot of people say, how the hell do you pull that one in there? I don't get that one. If you're giving into every primal whim, the core belief of it is like just a little bit beyond, it's self-indulgence to the degree, without getting too far into it, but it actually makes sense when you understand it in its practice. Not that I'm a Satanist or anything like that, but I try to learn about everything as much as possible. So that's why I say it's there. It's that far right. It's like there's just no rules, no repercussions, no whatever. Indulge into your most primal whatever, which to me is anarchist. Okay, no rules, whatever. But there's slight more limitation than that. So I won't divert too far in there. So now we know where left and right is. Now, everything has shifted over one to the left. So a conservative is really a liberal is really a socialist is really, a progressive, and then a progressive, then they're a communist, and after a communist, they're, Marxist, everything I said. I forgot to mention progressive. And most liberals now will call themselves progressive. If you, up here in Canada, every policy, our new progressive policy, that's all Trudeau talks about is progressive, progressive, progressive. Everything in Parliament. The Liberals are now this new progressive policy. Progressive is the new communist because it's shifted over. So when you're talking to a progressive, you're not talking to the dictionary version of a progressive in practice. And progressive is not really left or right. It's whatever benefits mankind the most is progressive. Nikola Tesla said something along the lines of, if progress doesn't, destroys your environment and doesn't, help the populace, then it's not really good. Progress is not really always a benefit to mankind, and that's true. Where Tesla wanted to, basically free energy, and this, the 0 point energy and stuff like that that people are talking about now. He really wanted to do it to better mankind and give it to the world. Edison wanted to sell it to the world, that type of thing. But I don't want to divert too much. Both men were extremely creative. Whether you liked one or the other doesn't really matter. They had different methods. But you could say one was on one side of the scale, the other one was on the other side of the scale in terms of how they approached humanity and stuff like that. So with that said, getting back to the musicians, musicians do tend to be using that side of the brain that the liberals tend to use. So they tend to be in that, I love her little box thing that she does there with the breaking it down like that, because it's very analytical that way. So if you're in this group, you're more likely to be, to be more respectful, more, like day to day to be the same one day after the other, more predictable, more, thinking of the future, that type of thing. Where you're on the other side, you're more like, change is good, change is always good, more individualistic, more agreeable, more, you're less to be less hard stand. Go watch her video on it, it'll explain itself much better. But the thing is you also have to factor in that there's a lot of musicians that can't come out into the open as right wing. And that type of thing, or whatever. There are few actors out there that can really get away with it. If I wanted to use a case in point, I would use Clint Eastwood. I think between John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, they leapfrog each other over who is really more hardcore right wing. One guy can't blink because his face is so freaking chiseled. The other guy shits nails. Both are men, right? But both, both have this very conservative, logical approach to things, orderly structure. They believe that you earn your own keep. Don't wallow and cry about what, things like that. So, yeah, these are actors that are definitely right-wing. In musicians, well, me being a musician, he would definitely not call me a hardcore lefty. Although on some policies, you might, think I'm a socialist on. I do believe in a two-tier medical system. I think that's probably the best way to go. People who can't, I don't think people should be rejected medical care based on their conditions, but I do think there should be conditions based on, if you're obese, okay, well, we're not going to refuse you care, but if you want this care, you're going to have to do something about your living, your daily